Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to another Best Darn Everything. My name is Miles, better known as Mr. Most Days Off, and today we are going to be talking about a cartoon from the 90s that influenced us greatly, but is not The Simpsons. And we're also going to have a special guest, and it's going to be a lot of fun. But first and foremost, joining me, as always, your co-host with the most, the very, very wet Richie Tressler.
I don't even know what's going on right now. And who's this very special guest? It's not Toby, is it? Is there a surprise guest? Because his name's on the screen. So, well, I mean, his name's on the screen, so everyone knows who he is. Let me just say, first of all, cheers out there to everyone in listening world. So,
Ooh, it upgraded from listening land last week.
Ooh, nice.
I must have filed some paperwork.
The second location.
Yeah.
You know what? Fuck it. Just Toby, just talk already. I'm done.
Hi, guys.
Hey, it's Toby. You can find him on all of his podcasts that he does, everything under the umbrella of Bad Secret Media. He's one of our favorite people. That's why we keep forcing him literally to come back on this show, even when he's like, please, I don't know anything about Final Fantasy. So we're going to talk about something different today. Toby, you and I talked about like months and months and months ago, whenever I was still doing this show as Mr. Most Days Off Loves Everything as opposed to Best Darn Everything, about talking about South Park. And I can see behind you, it looks like you've got you've got mold. Oh, you've got them all. As I say, I can only see Kyle over your shoulder.
Do you want to see? We'll just get this out of the way real quick. Some of the really cool merchandise. I don't have a lot. It's just a few things.
Wait, are you like about to sell? Is this a QVC thing? Like,
no,
the merchandise I have available.
I want to show you $75. You can get it for $24.99.
I want to show you.
Last for 50 minutes. So order now.
This is the grossest South Park item that you could possibly own.
It's from
2011, unopened, and it feels so gross. It feels slimy and stale. Like at the bottom, it feels slimy, and at the top, it feels stale and gross.
Just in case they're listening, it's Cheesy Poofs, Cartman's favorite snack from the early season.
Is that grosser than?
Oh, a coon pillow.
I forgot.
That's pretty cool.
Did you get that with like the special edition of the video game?
If you can't hear, it's farting right now.
Oh, that's funny.
Why Richie always keeps that thing on standby in case he lets one rip on air.
That's actually my dog chews on that pillow now. Like I find it in random spots in my room all the time now, and I just hope that like she bites down at the wrong spot so that like it just farts randomly and freaks her out.
Well, I've got one more thing I want to show you. It's a Scuzzlebutt plushie with the celery in its hand and Patrick Duffy for the leg.
Nice.
I love that product.
I looked this up on eBay because I bought this at a thrift store a couple years ago, and I looked it up on eBay just a minute ago because I was like, I wonder if that's on there. This stupid thing goes for over $100.
What?
Yeah, so it's going on a higher shelf here in a minute when we get done with this.
I can't see it anymore backwards, but I've got Wizard Cartman.
Oh, yeah, wow. I got him right here.
Yeah. I didn't realize we were doing a show and tell, but I too have the Wizard Cartman. He's up to there.
There's also a lot of dust on mine because he's been in the box for a while now.
You know, I was planning on talking about the show a little bit first and then getting into show and tell, but I see how excited you guys are, and that's very special to me. So
this is one of my favorite cartoon shows of all time. I can watch this show over and over and never get sick of it. It's terrible.
That's completely.
So I was just wanting to. I just wanted to show you my excitement that we're actually talking about South Park.
No,
so that's why I was like,
I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I'm so glad that you're excited to show off your cool shit. I also have cool South Park shit. The coolest thing I have is a lava lamp that was bought for me for my birthday. And they told me that they got it at a church garage sale. So, like, I feel like that just makes it extra special. But South Park is a cartoon. I want to say, I should have looked this up. I just got home, so I didn't do a ton of research for this. But I want to say it came out in 1997 on Comedy Central. is a show that is both hilarious and controversial. Something that I would say took what people were afraid of when The Simpsons came out, of like it's going to be bad for our children. And we're like, no. This is going to be bad.
Beer. Yeah, I said, hold my beer. That's what South Park said.
Yeah.
1997 is correct.
Cool. So I guess since we always start with this on the Best Darn Diddley episodes, I'll start by saying that I was forbidden to watch this show when it first aired. Like, now, first of all, wasn't a huge issue because we didn't have cable, so I couldn't have watched it at home if I wanted to. But like, this was one of the few shows that like usually my parents did not give a shit, but every once in a while they would like decide that there was something that was just like morally reprehensible to the point that it needed to be discussed. And this was one of the few things that I was like told I could not watch that show. How is it for you? Because we would have all been in middle school when this show originally came out.
Well, for me, I remember I didn't catch on to South Park for the first year or two. In fact, some of the first exposure was because of wrestling. The Oddities. There was a wrestling group called the Oddities. Golga. He was Earthquake. He would carry around a stuffed Cartman toy, and but I didn't know what it was. Anyways, my friend, when I was like,
for what it's
I guess
worth,
I would have been.
Golga comes out with the Cartman doll and wins the Rumble tonight, I am going to lose my shit. So sorry.
That's what happened. Yeah. So like, I didn't. That was my most exposure. So that's about 99. We're getting real close to like, So I remember I went to my friend's house. He had a VHS tape, and we watched it, and I was like, what is this? And then, of course, I tried to sneak it and watch it when I could. And then, the rest is history, I guess. Because and it wasn't like, my family wasn't like, you can't watch this show. Because I didn't ever like make it like, oh, I want to watch this show. You
just kind of did it without it being a thing. That makes sense. And
yeah,
Richie, you have like a notorious relationship with your dad for watching all sorts of cool shit. Including The Simpsons. And I know at some point you and your dad definitely bonded over South Park, but was he cool with it whenever it first came on the air?
Notorious? What do you mean by notorious?
I think it's well known throughout, like anybody who's listened to our podcast, you talk about it a lot is all I'm trying to say. Like, it's well noted.
Conveniently enough, I knew kids that were younger than me that like knew the characters when the first season was out, and like I recognized them kinda, but I'd never seen it. I recently tried Beavis and Butthead, and I know this is gonna sound terrible, but like wasn't a fan of like the half episode I watched of that. So South Park, the way people were talking about it, I kind of put it in the same ballpark. I used to go by Grapevine Mills when it first opened up, and they had a store with a bunch of South Park shirts out front. So it wasn't ever really on my radar. But one vacation my dad and I took to see my grandma in the Denver, Colorado area. She had Comedy Central.
You did go to Casa Bonita, I assume.
Eventually, we did. That's a great story. My dad, because of South Park, took me to a real Casa Bonita years later.
Nice.
And we were the only two that were excited about going, by the way, because it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. But
Casa Bonita.
For our first South Park experience, my grandma had Comedy Central, and when everyone was going to bed, my dad was like, hey, let's stay up and watch this. So it was on his radar, and it was like right at the start of season 2. When the episode we saw, it was the first episode we ever watched, was the dodgeball episode.
Oh, nice.
And it was so much funnier than I thought it was going to be. And then, like, I think there might have been another episode right after, or if not, the next night they had multiple episodes. So, like, after that first night, we just started watching it together. And then, like a year down the road, or even when we got back from town, eventually we had Comedy Central then. So we were watching it every week after that. And the rest is history. He actually bought the first season of VHS tapes at one point before DVD players came out. So
do you remember on the VHS tapes that they used to have like the little opening segments from Matt and Trey where they would like do like weird like
cooking bacon with bacon?
They had those on the DVD too. They were on the DVD.
I remember. I didn't know that. I also did the VHS on those in the early days because of how old the show is, which is crazy to think about.
My dad used to record the newer episodes when I wasn't living with him, and then give me like 8 hours of South Park on a VHS tape, and it was all the new seasons. So I was like the coolest kid in town. So
yeah, that's dope. One of like the big moments in South Park history, and I'm bringing this up now because Richie and I actually just discussed this not too long ago, just on our own off the air. But when the South Park movie came out, it like opened up this entire like just can of worms with the, anybody that was already upset with the show was now way more upset with the show because of like they were pushing boundaries. Let's be honest. They have Hitler. I'm sorry, Satan bottomed to Hitler in that movie. Like it's clearly like trying to push buttons. That's like the goal. But I remember there being a lot of very strong feelings, particularly with my dad. But just like the general public and whatnot, their backlash towards this film. Do you guys remember your experience when the South Park movie came out?
Go ahead, Toby.
So when the South Park movie first came out, I believe I was in 7th grade and I was playing football in a little hick, town. And
Redneck Mountain Town.
Yes. So yes, that. But also, you could walk into the locker room at any point and hear someone singing Uncle Fucker. Shut your fucking face, Uncle Fucker. Like, it was just constantly, and the coaches would get so pissed. And I hadn't seen the movie.
So you just thought you went to school with a bunch of like inbred motherfuckers, but it was like fine.
Yeah, no, it was just like, what is going on? And then, of course, you finally find out, but I didn't watch it in theater. I had to wait until it came out on, VHS, and a friend we watched it at their house or something. I don't remember.
I am sorry you guys had such terrible parents, because I talked about this on our movie experiences last week, that my dad went and checked the movie out on his own first to make sure it didn't get too over the top or there wasn't anything he couldn't explain. And then he took me to see it, and he still was like crying from laughter the second time he saw it. And not only that, after we saw the movie, he bought the soundtrack on CD. So like he would play it upstairs in the house, like listening to Kyle's Mom is a big fat bitch and like Uncle Fucker and It's Easy and the Brian Boitano song. I mean, I used to know all those songs by heart.
If you were here right now. Oh my gosh.
Sure, kicking us or two. That's what Brian Boitano do.
But the since you brought up the music, the soundtrack, there's two distinct moments in my life where I feel like my dad was the most disappointed he's ever been in me. And one of them, they both relate to South Park. One of them was at the theater because I actually had to convince him to take me to see South Park in theaters. It was one of those like, it's social suicide if I don't get to see this film. And he's like, we didn't go till it was in the dollar theaters, and like they had like the cop at the thing, like making sure you were actually old enough or with a parent to see it. And then like halfway through, I think it was the Uncle Fucker song. I mean, like he's just looking at me with like this utter disgust on his face. And like you could tell he hated the whole thing. And then the other time was even worse. I got the album Mr. Hanky's Christmas Classics, which is when still today, I still put that on like the first thing I do when Christmas comes out. If it's like after putting Christmas decorations out, it's got to be Mr. Hanky's. But I remember I was jamming out to that like CD one morning randomly, and the song Merry Fucking Christmas came on. And my dad is normally not a religious man. Like, I mean, like he kind of is, but it's like we didn't go to church that often. Like, he like casually believed that there's like a guy in the sky, but like it usually wasn't an issue. But like he looked at me with near tears in his eyes and like talked about how he's like, that's the Lord's birthday and shit. And it's just like, oh my God. It was kind of heartbreaking. So I had to put headphones in.
Hey there, Mr. Shinto is Mary. Great CD.
So I there's a couple things about the movie I want to bring up. How quickly, first off, that this cartoon series, after 2 seasons or so, maybe they were starting season 3, were already like they started in 97. The movie came out in 99, is what I think I just saw.
2000 something.
Like 2 years.
I didn't realize it was that quick. Honestly, I thought it was longer than that.
Yeah.
I'll fact check us again. Why not?
Yeah. Well, real quick, Toby, I'm going to cut you off. I want you to come back to this, but our guy over here in the chat, Movie Matthews, talking a little bit. I don't know if, welcome back. I don't know if South Park is coming back for season 24, but I believe so, especially after the success of the pandemic special, which was great. Dope on the Talking Head. You saw, so you were 16. I don't know, for around here in Texas where we saw it, there was cops at the door.
97.
They were making it like a big ass deal if you went to see that movie. And much like a sequel to the Simpsons movie, I too would love to see a South Park sequel.
We were not 16 yet on that movie. We were a lot younger than 16.
We've gotten,
I was 13, I think, at most.
Yeah.
We've gotten Simpson. We got South Park movies. They've just done them in 3-part episodes.
Yeah.
Imagination Land,
the whole Coon saga.
The Imagination Land could have gone to theaters. I think. I feel like that was strong enough to go to theaters. Yeah. But I think they made the better choice of not doing it.
They made it like a DVD release. Like I remember it being sold as a movie at Walmart and whatnot. Which is hilarious to think about Walmart selling South Park DVDs when they wouldn't sell unedited music for years.
Yeah. Now, okay, so the other thing I wanted to bring up about the movie is they lost the best soundtrack or something, and there was something about the soundtrack.
Canada was nominated for an Oscar.
And Robin Williams performed it. It was amazing.
At the Oscars. I talked about this recently, and then Phil Collins won, I believe, for Tarzan.
Phil Collins.
Fuck Phil Collins.
That's why they shit on him. In season 3, they shit on Phil Collins so much. And then also, Wild Wild West came out. I think it beat him in the Wild West. That's why in season 3 they have that episode where Cartman's doing the whole he's got the cowboy hat on in the Comet episode, which that's my favorite 3-part episode I've ever seen in any show.
The 3 different angles where all the boys see the comet. And like one's at like Jewish camp, a Jewish Jubilee or whatever. One's at like all the parents are having a really raunchy party, and then Cartman's being babysat by Shelley.
I remember that. That
is like episode. Everything's happening at the same time, but you're getting the 3 different stories of the same night. I always thought that was brilliant. I thought that was just, I don't know. There's something about just like, oh, I wonder what the other kids are doing, and they're off doing their own thing. I don't know. It's a great episode. Great 3 episodes.
Man, since you brought up favorite episode, I still to this day have a hard time passing up the episode Scott Tenorman Must Die as my all-time favorite. There's just that is Cartman at his absolute most evil, but also most funny, and I don't know that he's ever topped that.
Man, South Park, I wanted to talk about favorite episodes because I feel like there's a couple contenders. First of all, Fun with Weapons.
Great choice.
Fun with Weapons is
when he's invisible at the end.
No, just the fact that they dress Butters up as a dog to get him flicked. Almost like a dog, and he's like, whoa. And he starts again. It's terrible, but it's hilarious. But that one, oh my gosh, I completely forgot the WoW episode. I've watched the WoW episode.
Yeah, that's a really good. The Sword of a Thousand Truths.
And I was talking with somebody earlier about this that said that they love medicinal fried chicken, which I think is a hilarious
Another
episode.
great, yeah. It's really hard to say. I was gonna start.
It really said they like bouncing on the balls,
and what's the episode where it's like they can't decide if they're playing Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings, and they have to deliver the porno back?
Return of the Video.
I just watched that one 2 nights ago.
Fantastic! It emulates Lord of the Rings perfectly. It's just a complete metaphor.
We're playing Harry Potter. Gay.
That whole episode's fantastic, and Butters just wants to see more porn.
So that episode also
Backdoor Sluts 9
connects to something that Toby is very Guitar Queero for sure. I freaking love that episode so much. I was so into Guitar Hero, and I mean like everybody, but I was so into Guitar Hero.
No, Miles was really, really into Guitar Hero. Holy crap! Not going to class playing Guitar Hero and naked in the living room nonstop.
We should do an episode on Guitar Hero. I think we have stories. What were you going to say, Toby?
I was going to say once I was able to watch South Park. Whatever. He's like, he had to jam out.
I'm just practicing
South
my
Park
acoustic Guitar Hero.
That is, you can play Buckethead on level expert acoustic.
All right, but I'm the one that gets addicted to drugs and sells out.
So no. What I was gonna say is growing up, South Park influence us to talk a
What
certain
the fuck are
way
you
and say
talking
certain
about, you
things.
fucking fuck?
No, I'm saying
Don't
like
say the F word, Miles.
I was one.
Fuck you, Richie.
No, that's not the movie quote. That's okay.
Sorry. I fucked up.
It was always like a thing, like you'd go around and call your friends, oh, you're gay. Oh, that's gay. This is gay. That's gay. And it was from South Park. And like, we live in a different climate.
South Park changed that word before everybody else did, for what it's worth.
Yeah, but I always loved that South Park had the motorcycle episode where all the people are riding the Harleys.
I'm bi-curious.
And they're like, well, bi-curious. No, like when they're talking to one of the characters, and he's like, if a motorcycle cuts you off, what is the first thing you think? And he just sits there for a second, and it's just dead air, and he goes, fag. And it's the funniest thing I've ever heard in my life. And I don't know, it's stuff that you can't really like. It's a weird. Growing up then, watching South Park, it's definitely, I don't like saying those words because I feel like it might hurt people's feelings or whatever, and it's just why am I going to hurt someone's feelings? But one of South Park's rules, and I've watched all the commentary on all this because I'm a fucking dork. They have a rule: it's either all okay to make fun of or none of it is. Mm-hmm. And I've always been like, that's true. I mean, it's either all okay or none of it is.
The simple truth of the matter is you can make fun of anything as long as you do it well. It's a matter of how, like, as long as your joke is funny and not aimed at, like, basically punching down, you can make jokes about sensitive topics and make them funny. You just have to be really fucking good at what you do. And I'm glad you brought up that phrase because Richie and I have talked about that a lot. It's either all or none, and we say all or none all the time. And I would also say, like, so Best Darn Diddley is about, like, Richie and I independently grew up on The Simpsons and, like, years later bonded over it. But, like, I would say if, like, The Simpsons formed us individually, South Park was actually our bonding show that, like, we were watching, like, religiously together in college, because South Park is now going into, I think it's 24th season, as Matthew said. So, like, it was going steady and in what you might call the golden era during, like, our college years, where it did seem like every single episode every week, like, there was just never a bad episode.
Except for the one with Tally and Oprah. That one was a terrible episode.
What? That one's got some good funny bits in it.
That took a poo. That's a great episode, though.
Oh my god, so stupid but so funny.
I actually own the first 15 seasons on DVD and Blu-ray, but like I thought it would end, and it keeps going, and I'm just like, I can't keep doing this right now. But
you ran out of room.
Yeah, I ran out of room on my shelf.
And their DVDs are going to be obsolete by the time the last season comes out.
Whoa! It is going to actually transition from VHS all the way until DVD's done.
I mean, at the end of the life cycle. I mean, it's already VHS through Blu-ray and digital and beyond. So, I mean,
that's cool.
To get back onto them, like, pushing boundaries, one of the stories that I always thought was really intriguing was when they actually showed Muhammad for one episode, and then they had to actually censor him after that, and, like, literally by death threats. Where, like,
and they were willing to go there. It was Comedy Central that pulled the plug, and they even put that like message at the front of the episode saying, like, we wanted to air the episode that we created. Comedy Central is like, nah, we're not cool with the blood on our hands.
Yeah, but apparently the like, quote unquote terrorist organizations posted Matt and Trey's address on the internet, so, like, it was well known where they were at too. So, like, they were putting a lot on the line. It was just a cartoon show, but it makes you think also of, like, the movie The Interview, where, like, people were told this could happen. Yeah, like, it's crazy to think that TV shows and movies can have that much impact on, like, actual real world stuff. But I mean, it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, a cartoon, and I get it. It's their religion or whatever, and they got they got all upset about it. And I'm trying to be. Choose my words carefully right now. But yeah, they but they did. They got really bent out of shape over a cartoon, and I don't recall it even being like a negative portrayal or anything.
I remember I saw it when it aired, and I saw Muhammad, and then every time I've seen it since then, you've had that black censor bar, like, and I feel like it's a Mandela effect a little bit. Where like, did I actually see it, or do I think I saw it
in your head?
Like I'm 100.
It's if you have the original.
No, I don't.
If you have the, oh, see, I do, and it's on that DVD
I
box
know
set.
that I saw it. I know I saw Muhammad in that episode when it originally aired.
I'm gonna have to go back and watch it now because now you're freaking me out. Like, did I see
also
it?
ties into
Did
your
I
head.
see it?
Podcast about that.
Yeah. So we're kind of like toying on a lot of things that I want to talk. Now I want to talk about South Park conspiracies. I definitely want to talk about South Park video games, which we almost got to with the Lord of the Rings stuff earlier. But since we're here with the Mohammed, is that sealed?
No, it's not sealed. It's just got a plastic case on
really
it. Because
I have like just a loose copy of that game, which it is terrible, but it's so much fun. You can throw yellow snowballs at each other. Stop distracting me. We're going in this direction. Mohammed, was there ever a point as a fan of South Park that you ever felt like, oh, I wish they would have done that, or like maybe slightly embarrassed as like a fan of the show? Do you ever recall a time where they like what is there a line? Did they find it? Like, has any of the controversies been remotely warranted in your opinion?
Oh man, I'm sure there has to have been. I feel like I've felt that feeling before, but like honestly, I feel like it's been a long time since I've been quote unquote religious about watching the show. Ever since they've switched to like the through line, I've kind of this is going to sound like bad as a South Park fan. I've kind of lost interest ever since they got to the through line. I missed the episode. I've watched them all, but I missed the episodes where they used to just go on zany adventures once a week with the boys.
See, I feel like they got back to that more this last couple of seasons because I agree. Like it was a narrative, but like now there's like a through line, but they're going back to a lot more just like individual episodes.
I feel like it's very Randy centric lately, which like when they first started making Randy who Randy is, I love it. The Losing Edge is one of my all-time favorite episodes.
That was another episode we have to mention.
Oh my gosh.
I thought this was America.
This is America.
And of course it's got a, Karate Kid theme in there too at the end. So but yeah, like that's one of my all-time favorite episodes. And that Randy, like I love, but like I feel like it's almost too much now in the current state of things. And I know Miles will disagree with me on this because I know you love all the farming stuff and all that, or I thought you did. But
I did really love the pandemic special. I thought that was great.
There was a point where I feel nothing that to answer your question, nothing. I don't feel like anything's ever pushed the boundary to where I was like that was too far.
Much.
Which
the guinea pig ones, not lemon wings. I'm talking about the giant guinea pig ones. That's just too insensitive to guinea pigs.
There.
I was about to say, what are you talking about?
But the pan flute special or whatever.
Hey, remind me about the guinea pig in a minute when we talk about video games because I have a really funny story about.
Okay, before he tells it.
Okay, yes, I will. Remind me to do that too. I need to hear. God dang it. Damn it, you made me lose my train of thought. I'm pulling a Miles now.
Offended, controversial, cross the line.
Oh, what I was gonna say is I don't nothing's really ever got to me, but like when they had the episode where Stan could only hear like when he would listen to music, it sounded like shit.
Yeah.
Everything was shit. I swear, like I had a moment where I was like, Matt and Trey hate this show. Like that's what they're telling us. They're telling us that they're fucking done. I thought that was
they like that is accurate. They hated that. Like they started to hate their own creation.
Yeah. And I think that's why they went to the Randy. Like they're so heavy on the Randy storylines now because he is fun to fuck around. But the heart of the show is always the boys, But they've been doing it for 20 some odd years now, 23, 24 years now.
They kind of made Butters the main character for a long while there because he was still connected to the boys. Yeah, but it was like
another fantastic episode.
Yeah, for sure. I am
the whole Butters season. the season that Butters comes in is one of my favorite, just all out together seasons, because you get Butters, it changes it up a little bit, and then you get where Cartman drinks the chocolate milk with Kenny, and it's in his, so Kenny's there sort of, but you have Butters. I don't know that
One where
entire
Cartman
season.
dies.
We have to talk about the
and blows a lot.
PSP episode too. That one was nominated for an Emmy, or won an Emmy, right?
It was nominated at least.
Yeah, at least nominated. Probably could have won. I don't remember. Again, I didn't do research.
Carl's probably still that too.
But I just he was controlling like, the army.
Movie Matthew says that it won. Movie Matthew says it
thank you,
won.
Movie Matthew.
So
He also says that his mom likes South Park better than Family Guy, which is pretty dope in my opinion. Oh, what's the game? Oh, I do remember the game show. There's a game show video
Chef's
game.
Love Shack. Because I used to own people that game because it was just a small sample of questions, and once you knew the answers, and a lot of them were about the Denver Broncos, it was pretty easy done.
It was just a matter of pushing the button faster.
I think Chandra said in the comments that she was expert level in Guitar Hero, so you guys
So
are
is that? Yeah, that's fair. I started playing I now play the PS5 the PS4 version of Guitar Hero, and I still play on expert, but I don't enjoy it. Like I enjoyed playing on expert when I played on the 5-color button version. When I play on the new version on expert, it really feels like a chore. So I usually back it down to hard, but
feels like playing.
you
I
said
mean,
it's
at that point,
It's
it
not
feels like I
fun.
should just take lessons.
Right.
to catch that dragon, man.
I actually, this is I should save this for the other one. I will. We're gonna save this for the other one because I have this cool ass it's called The Gig. It's a guitar game that you play with a real guitar, and we'll talk about it another time.
Tease to a possible episode in the future?
No, we're definitely doing that episode now. Also, Matthew's talking about the show for PlayStation, so we're just all over the place. Rich or Toby, let's talk more about video games because you do a podcast about video games, one which you may have already reviewed that South Park game, or if not, you probably will soon.
No, actually, the Nintendo 64 version, my co-host on Secret Levels, Goobs, cannot find a Nintendo 64
And
South
Canada
Park
laws.
game, so I have one for him. It's in a box right now downstairs that I'm supposed to send to him at the beginning of December. and I
You're
didn't
already
do it.
2 months behind now.
Shit. I know. He's got other gifts and stuff that I fucking have just not given him. But anyways, no, we are going to cover that one day. And Matt Stone and Trey Parker had nothing to do with that game for the most part. Actually, all the games up until the last two, the Fractured Butthole, which is such a fucking
game.
funny title. And
Yeah,
the Stick of
I
Truth.
definitely want to get to both of those, but let's stay with the retro things. First of all, we know we have the South Park 64 game, which also came out on the PS1. We have the Chef's Love Shack, which I think was exclusively on the 64. Was there any other South Park games that I'm not thinking of that came out
There's
early
a
on?
racing game.
There was a racing
I
rally
remember
game.
that. Yeah.
I believe. And there was a I used to play it on you remember the Razor phones, and I had the whichever, it's called the Sliver, but they had a
I
South
played that
Park
when we
game
were
on
at
that.
Gordon's, Miles.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, I can't remember. What did you do in it, Toby? Remind me.
It was just a platformer, like you went around and did goofy
I remember the
shit.
platform
I can't
part, but there was
remember.
10 levels,
Now,
and one level you were Cartman trying to get the hippies out of the house or something.
That sounds perfect.
Yes. Now there was supposed to be a Game Boy game. This is really funny. There was supposed to be a Game Boy Color game, and they scrapped it and then reworked it to be a Mary Kate and
What?
Ashley game. Yes, and you can play the
Are
Mary
there
Kate
any
and Ashley
South
game.
Park Easter
but it
eggs
was
in the
supposed-
Mary Kate and Ashley game.
You know what? The video I watched was so long ago. I don't remember exactly what they were saying about it, but that's all I remember was there was, and there might be a prototype. Let me kind of, I'll look, but there might be a prototype available, and you might be able to play a couple levels.
What I had always heard from, like you had mentioned, Matt and Trey basically were more or less frustrated. I think at the least, upset more so maybe at how crappy all of these South Park games turned out to be, because none of them you could classify as good. I had a lot of fun playing the Nintendo 64 version. I remember we talked about like doing the yellow snowball fights was an absolute blast.
Cheat codes for all the characters in like the player versus player mode.
Yeah, but like the single player was just a repetitive like nightmare. I mean, you just literally fought turkey after turkey after turkey after turkey after turkey, and then toy robots, and then whatever it was. But it was a really repetitive, boring game. And the whole thing with the Stick of Truth and the Fractured But Whole, you can kind of see the origins of that episode. What did I say?
Just the way that you said it was just comical. Fractured but whole.
The fractured butthole.
Inflection's important. But either way, when those games came out, you kind of saw the origin of it in the Lord of the Rings episode where they were returning the porno, like we talked about. Like you see all of the elements that went into that game originally, like there. And I still remember the day that I got the GameStop, and the Game Informer magazine. That I kept it. I still have that one. I got rid of most of them. But like it did the wraparound where it was like all the South Park characters and then their reflection in the pond, and it was them in character. And that is still to date one of the greatest Game Informer covers I've ever seen.
I don't think it was the Lord of the Rings episode. I think it was the Console Wars episode that led into the Stick of Truth, where it was Xbox versus PlayStation, where they were unsure who was going to win. Because
is that the same one where they did the Wii? That's not the Wii episode, is it? That was a separate episode.
That's the Red Robin.
No.
The Black Friday special. That's what the console
was. Okay, yeah.
So at the end, they're like, I don't know, we can make anything important, like even this, and they hold up a stick at the end, and then Butters makes fun of pre-ordering.
Yep.
So, also, the Stick of Truth finally concludes the chef story. If you don't play it all the way to the end, you don't get the end of because Isaac Hayes, is that his name? When he left the show because they did the
well, he left because he didn't like how they made fun of
Scientology.
Yeah, that's what it was. So he left. So they wrote his character off, and that's why they said his crazy little club made him go crazy. His little club made him go crazy or whatever. Yes. So at the very end, they made him like Darth Chef, and like
game.
Yes, it didn't lead to anything, and they finish it up in the Stick of Truth, which I loved. Because I was always wanting that episode, and I got it. Basically, I remember being super hyped, being like, "Yes, they're actually finishing."
I think I went up. We were hoping they would do a midnight release, but my GameStop didn't, and I was literally up there at like 9:30 in the morning, just waiting for them to open the doors, so that we could like come home and play and whatnot. But that was a really good time, and that game, the story on it was fantastic. I think that. We could say that the actual RPG elements, especially for somebody like Richie who really wanted to talk about Final Fantasy tonight, but like like that type of RPG player, it was pretty bare bones. And then they tried to correct that in the sequel, but the Richie and I talked about this again off air. While that game was fantastic and a lot of fun to play, it didn't have the same. I didn't get the same feeling from the story as I did from the first game.
I think that like they're both really fun games, and I think especially Stick of Truth being completely new and how it did everything South Park wise was hilarious. Like even we're not going to repeat it verbatim, but all the options you get to create your character and the jokes that Cartman makes while you're selecting your character, like even like the race of your character is incredibly funny. Like, I mean, he just tells it how it is, honestly. But like the humor in those games.
It's a game that literally gives you white privilege if you choose to make your character white. I mean, like that's
as low key as we can make it sound right now. Yeah. But like everything about that game is just funny from like the story elements, and like even in the second one, I like all the origin stories and how you keep going back and different things happen each time when you gain a new power. But I wish there was a little more different paths, because especially with Stick of Truth, you feel like it diverts you on paths a little bit, but it always brings you back to the same point, which most games do. But like it feels like I was being handheld down a line in that one, which when I play stuff like Skyrim or things like that, it's a little more open ended through a lot of things.
Yeah. I'm not a huge RPG fan, so I don't mind a simplified, like character progression and things of that nature. But I do think that the open worldness of it just got very repetitive after a while.
It wasn't very open. It was a lot of straight paths still. So
but it was just a lot of recovering. You're right. It was you're basically it gives you the feeling of open world, but you really aren't open world. You're like almost like walking around in one of those old like Flash games. Like the escape room type stuff before there was escape rooms. But the games themselves were fantastic. I did like I mean, they were both day one buys. And I haven't heard anything, but I honestly would love for them to make an effort to take one more shot at it, because they were heavily involved in the creation of both games and they did such a good job with both. But I don't think either one of them are perfect. And I think that maybe to get off on their Randy tangent, how about we get a game where Randy is the lead? I would be into that.
Here's the thing, though, because they've both talked about this. They both are big RPG fans, and they love the silent character, the silent protagonist. Mm-hmm. So that's why, like, the main character, I think, says something at the end of the first game, but the main character that you're playing as never talks, and, like, Cartman always interjects for you, or some kid always interjects, oh, Butthole would never say something like this, or whatever.
It's like in Waiting. Ryan Reynolds' character won't let the new guy talk. It's like constantly putting him off.
Yeah. But what would they do in the third one, though? Even if it was Randy, there have to be some theme. Like we've had, like, Lord of the Rings style. Yeah, but
Integrity Farm.
I could see them doing the whole like pandemic thing. Like it could be a battle.
So everyone would be post-apocalyptic dressed then? Like you have to have a theme involved with how the characters dress.
What if that was like South Park's take on Fallout?
Fallout and Cyberpunk. Like
that would be dope.
South Park Jackson Cyberpunk, and they like just ruined Cyberpunk's day by making a very coherent and awesome game. Like, think about it if they did Cyberpunk and it was just futuristic with robotics. Like that'd be a lot of fun.
You were just Cartman, but with like a mechanical dick.
That'd be Mr. Slave.
Ooh, behave.
So I want to tell you real quick. I think it's from the first game, The Stick of Truth. This is my quick little story. There's a level where you get shrunk down and you go into someone's ass, right?
I think it's Mr. Slave.
I believe it's the first.
There's like condoms and stuff up in there, yeah.
Yeah. So I was playing that level, and I had a small kid in the house. And he didn't see, he wasn't in the room for any of like the build up to it. There's no way. But he saw me crawling around in the cave. He came in to ask me a question, and he was looking at it, and he goes, "Ew, you're in someone's butt." And I was like, "How do you know
and
that,
he's like,
kid?
The condoms, dumbass.
What are you talking about?" I was like, "Yeah, no, it's a cave. It's a cave."
And now the part where it's spelunking.
You see the part where you were chasing the gnomes and you were shrunk down, and you were like literally under your parents while they were banging. Yeah,
I was gonna bring that. Was that the first?
No.
I think it was the first one. We had to dodge your dad's ball.
That is arguably the most controversial moment. Well, there is another moment too, but that's one of the most controversial moments in that game, where you actually have a boss fight where you have to battle something while dodging your dad's balls while she pounds your mom doggy style. It's insane. It's the fact that, like, think about the pitch on that. Like, somebody had to storyboard that. Like, there was like pencil drawings that were made. There was a table read like that. There's an entire process that went into this.
Well, okay. So one more thing I want to talk about on the games is the games. The Stick of Truth is what finally put all the kids' houses where they're supposed to go. So they know, like, that's when they finally were like, oh, this is what South Park looks like. Because before it was just like, it seemed like one endless road, and, you know, all the kids,
almost like
everything was on one road.
Construction paper or something.
The creators even admitted, Matt and Trey admitted that was when they were finally like, oh shit, we have to sit down and actually map out the town now.
I feel like they said the same thing for The Simpsons, but like I feel like one thing is South Park actually, especially at the time, they wanted to get more like story driven or whatever. But South Park has like stuck to their town being in one place versus like the Springfield video games don't even really make sense because they're completely, you know, in opposition to like some of the stuff we see on the show.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting because you can see it in these later seasons since those games came out that where like Kenny is always by a railroad track now. Like there's always a railroad track, a railroad crossing pretty close to his house. A lot of the stuff is just, I mean, it's kind of got like, oh, okay, this is pretty set in stone to the show. So I always thought that was kind of neat that they were like, okay, this is it. This is how South Park actually looks.
So Richie, you kind of mentioned that you haven't really been keeping up with the show too much. I know you catch an episode here and there whenever I'll tell you about one or whatever. But Toby, what about you? Have you been pretty consistently keeping up?
Well, I guess I'm about to have to switch to HBO Max or whatever it's called because they just recently, within the last year, switched over to Hulu, which ruined my day because I'm one of those kind of people that has to watch something when I go to sleep at night. Usually South Park's my first go-to. I like to just pick a random episode and just let Hulu keep going until it stops. And so I was able to watch the pandemic special, and nothing else has come out yet. But luckily, they always have it to where a couple of days later, you can always go to southpark.com and watch the episode.
Yeah.
So if you don't have southparkstudios.com, and you can watch it. So I haven't had to order HBO Max or whatever they got moved to because I'm not sure if they're still going to go to Hulu first and then HBO Max. Or if it's going straight, I don't know how it's going to work.
I'm probably going to get rid of Netflix and pick up HBO Max because Netflix raised their prices, and now Netflix is actually more than HBO Max is, and Max seems like it's better.
You got to get that Barry on.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, South Park, it influenced us all. I think it's a fantastic show. I still watch it. I still enjoy it. I do think that it definitely, in some ways, I'll say, like The Simpsons, has dipped in the middle of its lifespan. At least, from what people talk about. I did like aspects of the continuity that they picked up, and I still continue to do so. Honestly, this is one of the most fucked up jokes they've ever done, but it's one of my favorites. During one of the most recent seasons, they would just periodically have gunfire going off anytime the kids were at school. So like literally they'd just be walking through the school and you just hear gunfire. And like the joke was everybody was just so casual about it. And literally kids would just drop dead sometimes. And they would just continue on talking about like, what they were going to have for lunch, and like teachers and students. Like, so there are those like things that continue to happen, but they have gotten back to a little bit more of a, just independent stories per episode, which is nice.
When you say something like that, like they are very controversial, but they are they do a lot of like social hot takes on stuff too. They're really, I feel like, and I've said this for so long, South Park is really either they're accidentally really fucking too smart for their own good, or they're just too smart for their own good. And I think it's that. I think Matt and Trey are and the writers that they have coming in and out of the room. I don't want to give just them the credit, but like they know how to like poke. So you're like, look, this is what we're making fun of. How do you feel about this? We're gonna and Cartman's always great because he's their kind of like devil who can say the most fucked up things. And even for Secret Transmission, like I've used a Cartman-like character to say whatever shitty thing I want to say with the devil producer. And that's what it is. It's my character that if I want to make a shitty joke, I hit that thing and make my voice deep, and it was the devil saying it. It wasn't me. You
get away with a little bit of creative,
but that's what
freedom is, where you can say some pretty fucked up jokes and whatnot. And I think they do a good job because they do bring a balance on things a lot of times. I don't feel like they usually like they'll take shots, but they take shots at a lot of different people in a lot of different directions. It's not always just beating the same horse. Unless they're making a dead horse. Was that?
I learned something today.
I learned something today.
That's when at the end of almost every episode.
That seems like the perfect way to go. I think that we could do a whole other episode talking about the movies that these guys did. You're talking about the writing and whatnot. But let's all take a moment and tell everyone what we learned today, and also where you can find you online. You have to start with I learned something today.
I guess I'll go first. I learned something today that we are nerds for a cartoon. Well, I really like got super like I kind of was like, oh, I'm gonna be on this Final Fantasy thing, and then when you said South Park, I was like, well, I mean,
you're like the living version of that Drake meme. You're like Final Fantasy, South Park.
Yes, exactly. Like it is one of the shows that I hold like near and dear to my heart, and I love the show. I even tried to make some like really crappy, cheap Flash animation, mimicking the show with a duck character, and I actually recently just looked at it. And
ducks, like the Satan worshipping Critter Christmas.
Critters.
Yeah, sorry.
Good stuff. But yeah, I mean, I feel like Matt Stone, Trey Parker, I've gotten a lot of influence from them, along with like many other people that we've talked about throughout your shows. And it's just the games. I love it. I eat it up. They can keep putting out seasons for as long as they want, and I kind of feel
like the same for the most part. Like I fail to find a way that the show would get so bad that I'd be like, I just can't watch that. And they are doing shorter seasons now too, which makes it pretty easy to keep up with. I dislike it on one hand, but like because it's like 10 weeks and you're done. But like on the other, it's really easy to stay caught up.
We didn't even talk about the fact that it takes them 6 days to make an episode, like, and make it ready to air. Like that whole special, which just is mind-boggling how quickly they put episodes together. But
and so I mean, they did that one episode about the election the day after the election. Like this was like 2 elections ago, but still, it's just to show how long the show's been on the air.
But like something else we didn't get to talk about too is it has moments that are actually like really poignant and really, really like good or beautiful moments. And like I wanted to leave with this thought a little bit too. Is like one of my favorite moments is the Raisins episode where Butters thinks he's in a relationship with a girl, and then he finds out he's not. And like Stan and Mindy had broken up, and Butters is crying in the rain in the street when Stan's in the goth uniform, and he's like, well, what's wrong, Butters? And Butters like, my girlfriend broke up with me. And he's like, yeah, I guess you can come join the goth kids if you want. And he's like, no, thanks. And he just does this whole speech about like how he knows he's sad right now, but he's only sad because something made him really, really happy before that. So it's just kind of proof that he was really happy once. And he calls it a beautiful sadness. And every once in a while, there are moments like that. And it's followed by a really funny line from Butters. He doesn't want to be a stupid goth kid. But like, like they have moments like that, especially in the quote unquote, I guess you could say, like Miles said, golden age of it, that just really make you appreciate the show like that. And like later on, one of my favorite moments too is it's not necessarily a great episode, but when they do the whole episode where Stan makes the video about bullying, and Matt and Trey basically go after the movie Bully or Bullying, whatever it's called, because they point out that when you put the person being bullied as the center of attention in a movie, you're not really helping the child out. Like you're not really helping them deal with the bullies or get over this thing. You're making them the center of attention, which is probably not the thing they wanted in the first place. And again, it's Butters in that episode where you find out he's being bullied by his grandma. And I love the speech he gives her one night where he's like, you're old and you're probably going to die soon. And I'm going to be just fine. I'm just going to go on living, but you're going to die alone. And I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But like,
harsh, but
yeah. And it's just, they have some moments like that where you're just like, man, like this show is a lot deeper than I realized it is. And that's the stuff that I enjoy about it.
Yeah. I defended it for years and
totally agree.
For a set number of years, I still would. I often said that it was the smartest show on television that happened to make a lot of poop jokes.
Yep. I think you could say that. I think South Park and Rick and Morty are like right there for me of like, they'll make dick jokes all day long and poop jokes and they'll all day long, but then they'll have something that's like, damn.
That's something too that, I mean, I agree it inspired Rick and Morty big time, but another thing about South Park that's just really, really interesting, we've touched on it, but I think we should maybe mention it before we close out. South Park has evolved so much as to what it started as to what it's became. And I mean that both in the way the show is made and in the way that the humor is written, the things they choose to tackle. But I mean, this is a show that literally started on construction paper cutouts that were in stop motion. And I believe like the very first episode they did was Santa versus Jesus in like a fight of some sort.
The short, yeah.
It was
Yeah,
a Christmas card.
and then
It was-
but then
That's what
they
they call it, a
evolved from
Christmas
that. Like
card.
the entire first couple seasons were done in that like legit like construction paper style, and then it slowly evolved, and now we've got like fully 3D models like rendered, and even the credits evolved with that. But more than anything, like what the show was at its base evolved, because when it did first start out, Richie, you mentioned the dodgeball episode. I think is like one of the first episodes. Great episode, but not even. It's hard to even compare it to an episode of like today's South Park.
Well, they say they used to be doing it in one of their parents' living rooms where they were doing the cardboard cutouts, and someone would open the front door and close it, and the wind would blow all of their stuff like all over the place, where like they had to reset a scene or one snapshot because of that. So like but they were. I mean, they were what, in their mid to late 20s when they were doing that. So like their story shows you too that like if you want to do something, you got to put in the work and the effort to do it, and that it's never too late. And like look at all the success they've had. And I'm not talking just about South Park. I'm talking like outside of South Park with Book of Mormon, like video games. They've gotten into they dip their hands in everything pretty much because they're always looking. Yeah, which they said was the biggest difficulty they've ever tackled.
Oh yeah, that again. We should really go. We should do another episode where we actually dive into the not South Park, like everything from Cannibal Holocaust to basketball is my favorite by far of all time. So yeah, let's put a pin in that.
As good as Crack Baby basketball though.
We're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about other Matt and Trey projects that we didn't get to today, and. You know, I'm sure some more South Park is going to come in there, and Toby, we'll definitely make sure that you're available to be a part of that conversation. But yeah, I think that South Park in some ways is just as influential on me as The Simpsons is. I think The Simpsons is like the foundation, and South Park would be like the frame of like my sense of humor if I'm making a building analogy. Because why not?
As I'm going home. Oh, wait.
I like
it. And hopefully I fill in some of my own original shit somewhere for like the drywall. I don't know. But Toby, Bad Secret Media, your social media, tell everybody everything.
Yes. Go to badsecretmedia.com. I've got the Secret Transmission podcast, which is conspiracies and supernatural, all that kind of good stuff. It's a satire outlook on it. And there's a Satan character that's basically Cartman. I've got the Secret Levels podcast, which is a retro video game review show, which we will one day touch on the South Park 64 game. And then there's other stuff on there. So like I said, badsecretmedia.com. And if you want to follow me on Instagram and Twitter, it's
He shows a lot of
Doom. I have an OnlyFans.
Plug it.
I mean, I do.
That's what he does on the show.
I know. There's
onlyfans.com/.
If you go to onlyfans.com/ there was supposed to be a joke with it. I never went through with it. It's a story on its own, but it's there. Yeah. I mean, I can say I have one.
You should just go put up a picture of a person you don't like and say I posted a dick pic to my OnlyFans. Boom, got him.
Oh, that's why you're a comedian.
Tell everybody where they can find us and you and our show and what we do here.
You can follow Miles at Mr. Most Days Off. That works all over social media. That's his whole stand-up gig and everything too. So make sure you check him out. He's got some real funny stuff on there. You can follow me at TheWiz_Kid23. And most importantly, you can follow our show. That's at Best Darn Diddly. I know it says everything at the top, but our show's at Best Darn Diddly. That's wrong way. DIDDLY. Maybe you can see that, maybe you can't. Reverse cameras are a terrible, terrible thing. But last thing I just want to throw out there, happy birthday, Mom, and I miss you, Dad. It's now after midnight, so.
Well, I will say that thank you for tuning into this Best Darn Everything. If you are new to the show, then probably you're just confused at why Simpsons podcast is talking about Not the Simpsons. But starting this season, we are now alternating between Best Darn Diddly, our Simpsons reviews, and our Best Darn Everythings, our whatever reviews. I don't know which one we're doing next week because it's the Super Bowl on the day that we would normally record. So we're going to have to figure out a plan. But we will be back soon. Our next Simpsons topic we're going to be talking about will feature the return of Dr. Andrew Briseño, keeping the streak alive, and we'll be discussing the episode E.I.E.I.DO. And then our next Best Darn Everything, I'll probably just pester Richie all week, and then we'll call it something different at the last second when we figure it out. So we'll let you know. But thank you so much, as always, for tuning into this Best Darn Everything. Thank you, Toby, for being here. And make sure you come back again next week while we figure out, or for whatever we figure out to talk about.
Just remember, with bitch, drop the T, because Bic is Latin for generosity.
And until next time, shut your fucking face, Uncle Fucker.